What's up, my know-it-alls? Well, I am so happy to be back. It has been a crazy couple of weeks. I was at my daughter's softball game, short story real quick, and all of a sudden I felt a pain in my chest.
I got a pain in my chest. I can't breathe.
And so immediately one of the softball moms, it happens to be at a nurse, and so she looks me over and says, hey man, maybe we shouldn't take a risk on it, and I ended up getting rushed to the hospital. While there, come to find out, I did not have anything wrong with my heart, so thank you for your concerns. What I did have was walking pneumonia. That's right, Mr. Know-it-all is a pretty hardworking guy, and so the walking pneumonia had begun to take its toll on me, and so I needed to take a break for a minute. So I apologize for dropping off, but we got some Star Wars to get caught up on, so here we go, talking about Star Wars Andor right now. Man, we have so many episodes to get caught up on. So originally the plan was, we had noticed there was a pattern. Mrs. Know-it-all and I had noticed there was a pattern in the first several series of episodes that every 3 episodes felt like its own self-contained story. Now, we figured let's go ahead and experiment with this, and so we allowed the episodes 7, 8, and 9. And then, of course, now today's episode 10. So announcement, Narkina 5, and Nobody's Listening. The story picks up right where we left off, which is that Andor he's successful. They did their thing. So what happens is Cassian goes home and he's got some money in his pocket. He's got the 200,000 credits that they promised him. He's heading home back to the same place where we started, and he finds his mom, and she's kind of lost it. That's right. She's going a little bit, she's not all there. And what ends up happening is he has to make the decision to go. He wants to just go to the Outer Rim, go to some pleasure planet, some vacation world, and just he basically wants to go to the equivalent of planet Fiji, and wants to just relax and say, you know what, I'm gonna ride this whole thing out, let the Empire do what the Empire is gonna do. So he leaves after visiting everybody. He visits Bix, he visits his mom, Bix, and the whole bit, and finally he leaves. His mom, however, has decided she wants to be a rebel. Oh yeah, his mom's great. So she's like, I have to stay because someone has to fight for the planet and blah blah blah. Oh, it's great, and it really is. She's a complete sweetheart. She genuinely is. So he makes that decision to go, and essentially you start to know and notice that there's a whole lot more happening in terms of how serious the Empire is going to take things. This whole thing has ramped everything up. It's escalated everything up. So what you have is, briefly, the ISB is starting to take things more seriously, really kind of getting into their own heads. And what you have is this really amazing meeting between all the ISB folks, and you get the leader, the head guy, who essentially is looking at this going, what is happening? And what you end up with is, where's his name? Colonel Yularen, that's right. Colonel Yularen, played by Malcolm Sinclair, he does a really good job. He wants to know what's going on, and he essentially starts to establish the fact that there is, he asked the question, what's happening? What's happening here? What's going on? And so Dedra Meero has to give the announcement that, hey, this is what I believe is happening. We need to figure this thing out. And she's essentially given authority over several. They do some sector shifting, and she's given authority to go ahead by Major Partagaz to go ahead and investigate wherever this thing takes them. Wherever it takes them. Okay? All right. So, she's a bad lady. Let me just tell you, she is 100% a bad lady. I love her. No, I really do. She's utterly amazing. And I think that's one of the things that I think the episode really fails to do is take the opportunity to... they're trying to show us how good people are based in the actual situation that they're in. Mon Mothma goes back to visit Luthen, and she asks, was this us? And Luthen's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. What are you going on about? Not me. And it's pretty interesting, that entire scenario. You start to also see that now that Dedra Meero is getting everyone's support, her staff is starting to really kind of step up and really be they're starting to flex the way she should be. Episode 7 announcement. Episode 7 announcement, the know-it-all index for episode 7 is going to be a solid 8. It was a solid 8 of an episode. I liked it. It didn't blow my socks off, but you definitely saw the beginning. It's definitely a beginning episode. So then we go to episode 8. which is Narkina 5. Now, at the very end of the last episode, Cassian's on his vacation planet, taking it in, relaxing, enjoying life, and the Empire's there, and the Empire's chasing some folks, and he just wants to stay out of the Empire's way and gets cornered, and now he gets arrested. He gets arrested, and he gets judged, because the ISB has changed all of the rulings in terms of how they're going to be sentencing people. Now, why is that important? This is the beginning of everything. They have a conversation, Mon Mothma and Luthen, where she basically says, the Empire's going to react, and he goes, I'm counting on it. He wants to make sure that the Empire pushes hard enough. So overall, again, at this point in the story, I'm starting to kind of see the machinations of some things that are happening, and in the next episode, Narkina 5, you're going to get you'll get an idea a little more of some of the things that are going down. So in Narkina 5, that's where Cassian gets sentenced to. Everyone's barefoot, and everyone works, and the floor is metal, because if you misbehave or whatever else, they just electrocute you on the floor. All the guards are wearing insulated boots. And that's when you get to meet, oh my God, you get to meet Andy Serkis's character, who is, I love, anytime Andy Serkis gets the opportunity to actually be something without having to be like in a mask or some sort of motion capture thing, I'm actually very much about his character. I really like him. I like him a lot. And so Andy Serkis plays Kino Loy, who's he's the shift manager, or the floor manager of this area. So there are different floors, okay? Cassian's on level 5. And there's several interesting things that happen. So like when he first gets there, Kino Loy explains to him the entire process and the whole system, how it works. They essentially are competing against other floors and other tables and whatnot. And if they're behind on their quotas, they're building something. So the Empire is using them for free labor, prison labor, which is nothing to be surprised about. And so what ends up happening is that you get to see and understand a little more acutely what's going on. Now, during all this, Luthen makes a trip to a good friend of ours, who you guys will recognize from Rogue One, and that is Saw Gerrera. Forrest Whitaker plays an amazing character. It's one of those characters that came over from the animated series, because he was actually there back then. So what happens is that, and what's great is he looks younger and less haggard than we see him in Rogue One. So Luthen and him have a conversation, and during the conversation, it comes out that he very much is like, oh, this people, that people, the other people. He's naming off all these different rebel groups, rebel factions, if you will. And so Luthen's like, look, man, I'm giving you an opportunity. I got this guy. He wants to go do some stuff. You want to help him or not? And he's like, pass. Whatever you guys are doing, I'm sure it's going to be fun, but I'm here for the long haul. So Saw Gerrera's of the mindset that everyone else should be following his cues. Oh, you want to create a rebellion? You want to create rebels, so to speak? Then everyone should follow my lead. He doesn't trust anybody else. He believes all the others eventually are going to get infiltrated, destroyed, whatever. He's not fully yet the super suspicious guy that we know him to end up becoming in Rogue One, but man, he's on his way there. Also, at this point, he's not using full-blown the breather, but he's definitely taking hits of air. So he's definitely still, he's becoming the guy that we're going to remember him to be. That is episode 8, Narkina 5. What am I going to give Narkina 5? I'm going to give Narkina 5 a 7. Not because it's bad. It's just a middle bridge episode. Really slow. It's very, very slow. And it's one of those things where I was like, is it really going to be like this? So now we get into what I thought was going to be the penultimate the last episode of this little mini 3-part deal. I was wrong, by the way. This episode 10, is actually the final part. And we're going to get into episode 10 in a second. All right. So in episode 9, the episode's called Nobody's Listening. And you start the episode, they don't tell you how much time has passed, but it's enough time for Cassian to have sort of begun to establish himself as part of the group of who works on his table. As they show one scene early on where he's kind of walking around, and there's another guy at a different table that he's sort of connecting with as he goes to the bathroom, and they're assessing what is the deal. So they find out that the elevators that move up and down, those things you don't have to worry. There's no electrical connection to that. And they guess it's probably because it would short out the lift to have electrical setups in it or whatever. Anyway, so what ends up happening is you can tell. Oh, and Kino's not stupid. He can tell that they're all plotting something. Meanwhile, one of the old guys is starting to get sick. And so they try to help, and they try to kind of divert some of his from his work. But at the end of the day, you get to the end of this episode. Let me back up because I don't want to go fully too fast. Mon Mothma has a dinner, an event of some kind, and her buddy, who she was talking to before, the other Chandrillan, he shows up and he basically says, look, I can help you move your money, but they're setting up new banking restrictions and overseers and all kinds of processes. So there is somebody who might be able to help. And he says a name. She immediately is like, that's not a banker. That's a criminal. He's a thug. Essentially the Chandrillan Mafia. Now, there's precedent for this in real life, and by that I mean back in World War II. Do you know who they in order to protect our docks, the United States government, the Secret Service, and whatnot, they employed the mob. So again, it's not uncommon for people to turn toward less reputable characters in order to help maintain order or help things move forward or whatever else for their cause. So she's like, she's going to talk to this guy, but at the end of the day, she's not really feeling it. And we're going to get back to that in this episode 10, as soon as I get to it. So now, Kino Loy begins to question what's going on. At one point, all of the groups are back on their little bridge platform thing, going back and forth. And one of the guys who's been sign languaging with somebody else somewhere else is frantic. And come to find out, there's rumor that something crazy happened 2 levels up. Okay? All right. The old man now we circle back to the old man. The old man, and by this point Kino's not stupid. He's like, you guys think you're going to do something, you're stupid, you're going to get everybody in trouble, you need to stop acting ridiculous, whatever. And so finally the old man has a heart attack, a stroke. And we don't know this yet. Kino Loy and Cassian decide to stay. They stay with him, the old guy. A medical inmate is brought in. The guards bring him in. He's the same outfit, but instead of the orange on the shoulders, he's got blue on the shoulders. And he looks real upset. And so he's sitting there, and they're like, oh, it's okay. He gets out in 41 days. He gets out. And dude keeps implying, look, man, I wouldn't worry about when he gets out, and this and that. So finally, toward the very end, they're like, when they realize the dude's dead, and Cassian's like, what happened up on level 2? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, dude, what happened? And so Kino's finally like, what happened on level 2? So he asks, he's like, hey, I need a stretcher or whatever. So the guard goes to check and see what's taking so long, leaving them alone for a brief period. That's when they find out someone from level 4 was released and then showed up on level 2. When this happened, everyone found out, and they had to kill the entire floor. 100 men are killed to keep the secret. Cassian begins to tell dude, what do you think is happening? What do you think's we have to do something? And finally he's like, how many guards are there? And dude, by the way, dude wasn't going to talk to him about any of this before. So Kino says to him, there's 11 guards on at any given time. 11. Okay? Man, it's good stuff. The episode's called Nobody's Listening because at one point, dude's in when Cassian's talking to him early on, Kino, in their back in their bunk area, the dude's like, be quiet, this and that. Do you want to do this and this? And he goes, what are you talking about? They don't care about us. He goes, nobody's listening, and he shouts. It's the name of the episode. All right, nobody's listening. Episode 9. I'm going to give a 9. It began to turn, and I really liked where it was going, and I saw us heading toward. Now, it wasn't the ending I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to go back to doing these weekly. Provided I'm not sick like I was for the last 2 weeks, so I apologize. But so the episode again. Nobody's listening. Episode 9. Know It All Index is a 9. So 9 for episode 9. Now we come to episode 10. Episode 10 is tonight's episode. Here we go. Or today's episode. The episode's called One Way Out. And there's chanting everywhere. One way out. You'll see. So the episode starts with the group is watching as the medical guy kind of carts out the old man's body or another person's body, and Kino and Cassian are essentially kind of standing ready. They have to go back to their thing after they witnessed the whole thing, and that's when Cassian has a conversation with him, and he's like, "Dude, we got to break out like tomorrow. It's got to happen immediately." And dude's like, "What are you talking about? I don't know. I don't know." He's like, "We can't wait." And he come to find out, I didn't even know this. There's 5,000 men there. 5,000 men, and while they're there, there's only on any given time on deck 11 guards. Because it's the old circus adage. You know what I mean? If you raise an elephant from a very young age, all it knows is that stake in the ground that's this long is keeping it there. As the elephant gets huge, it never tries to fight the stake because since it was a baby, that's how it kept it in line. One day you're going to find out that's not going to keep you in line. And that's what Cassian's like, look, man, they know. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, he goes, they just wiped out like 100 men. He's like, what do you call that? He's like, I call that power. He's like, I don't. I call it panicking. Cassian's like, real power doesn't freak out. They know it's 5,000 men versus about 11 or so, and at the end of the day, they can't. So Kino's fighting what he already knows to be true, and Cassian's sort of hitting him in the face with it. Ultimately, he ends up deciding that, okay, we absolutely have to do this thing. Meanwhile, what you get is you get this really interesting scene where you cut back to Dedra Meero. Dedra Meero has this really interesting scene where she's talking to a command. We've seen this guy before. His name is Robert Ems, is the actor. He plays Supervisor Lonnie Jung. Okay, Lonnie's like one of her right-hand people. He's very much so. Come to find out, they capture. There's another guy named Tirga. I remember his name right this second. Who is trying to? They catch a pilot, a rebel ship, or whatever else. And what they do is they come up with the plan. We need to kill the pilot, make the whole thing look like we don't know what happened. He was raided. He was whatever, and see if who investigates. And they're trying to trap this rebel group who Luthen was going to be using instead since what's his name, Saw Gerrera wasn't available, he's going to use this other guy. Anyways, come to find out the other guy is being watched by the Empire. It's a whole thing. So their plot and plan is to let this whole thing happen. When they do, sure enough, yes, people begin to investigate, and they go, okay. That's when Lonnie comes up with the great idea. We need to investigate this ship because if we didn't set it up, that's what we would normally do. And so Paragas is like, okay, no, let's do that. That's great. That's smart. Meanwhile, and Dedra Meero she's like, because all her people are starting to behave like she would want them to behave. Like literally, they're all taking their cues and reactions the way she would do it, and it's part of what is sort of building this whole thing up. Cassian and so we cut back to the prison to Narkina 5, and Cassian and Kino are back in their dorm area. When they walk in, everyone's like, "What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" To the old man, they're like, "He's dead. He's dead. He's dead." But they're all like, "What's happening? What's happening?" And Cassian and him have to tell them the truth. You ain't leaving. You're not going anywhere. And then he explains to them there was a person who was released from one floor, found on another floor. They're just making it up as we go, this and that. And he's like, we have the next day, because since dude's dead, they're going to bring a new prisoner in to replace him. That's the only opportunity you have when that lift comes down. Okay, remember from 2 episodes ago? That's right. So What they do is they have to go and get ready for that encounter, and that, sure enough, it's exactly what they're doing. So the next day they all go to work, and they're just waiting. They're biding their time, if you will. Meanwhile, you get this really interesting moment where back at Mon Mothma's, her good buddy, this guy she doesn't want to talk to, he's not a mob or mafia, but he's a criminal for sure. He shows up. And he's like, hey, let's just talk. We're all Chandrillans here. What's up, man? Let's have a conversation. And he's basically like, look, this nothing, she's trying her best to essentially be like, hey man, you are a criminal, whatever else. And he's like, what are you talking about? We're gonna move money around. It's your money. The Empire set up these new financial laws. They didn't even ask you guys in the Senate. They just did it. Oh, he's so smarmy. Anyway. So what ends up happening is she ends up having to deal with the fact that he does not want money back. She's like, look, I don't want to owe any favors. Let me just pay you. And he goes, I don't want money. You're gonna have to be disappointed. Sorry. Discomfort is probably gonna be the price of doing business. All I want is an invite back for me and my 14-year-old son. And she's like, are you asking me for a betrothal? Because apparently that's the thing Chandrillans do. They do betrothals and the whole thing. He goes, no, my son's 13. Your daughter's, or my son's 14. He's 13. She's 14. Whatever. I want to just make an introduction and let whatever happens happen. Okay. And she's immediately like, you can show him out. And so he's like, that's all right. Give it some thought. And she's like, I'm not thinking about it. And he turns around and is like, that's the first dishonest thing you've said. I was like, dude, he knows the deal. He knows he's got her because she needs the situation. You got to remember, she's eventually going to become the Mon Mothma we know from the series, which is a leader in the rebellion, stands tall, the whole bit. So that's got to happen. And so she's got to come down from her high horse very soon. And I do believe that's going to happen. I believe we're going to get to see that transformation in the series. And they're eventually going to have to run and escape because eventually, remember, they're going to end up on Yavin. That's where the rebel base gets built. Meanwhile, back on way back at Cassian's little Luthen gets a call for a meeting with a dude. It's Lonnie who he's gonna have to meet with, and his female assistant is very distrusting. She's like, it's a trap, you shouldn't go, blah blah blah. And he's like, what am I supposed to do? I gotta do this thing. Anyway, this episode is excellent, by the way. Excellent. I'm not even gonna bury the lead. This is probably it's an excellent episode. I'm not gonna let me not spoil myself. Anyway, so the next part of this blows all things away. It's the next day on Narkina 5. Cassie and Kino are ready, and they're watching. So what he does is toward the end of the shift, when they know they're going to bring somebody in, he goes to the bathroom thing again, and he's trying to break this thing he was trying to break before. It breaks, and water starts pouring out. He's covered in water. Water's pouring out. Why? I didn't even understand. I was like, isn't water going to make it worse? So as they're doing the whole thing, the thing comes down, this and that. He jams his tool into the tool he was working with that he took to the bathroom with him, that he broke the pipe with the water. Jams it into the elevator, sticking the elevator where it's at. Him and his partner, the one who he's talking to that we didn't know at the time, start trying to jump at the thing and climb up. Meanwhile, all the other guys on the floor start throwing tools and everything they've got, parts, whatever, machinery, up at the guards. And the guards on the platform are trying to shoot down at the thing. And finally they're like, electrocute the floor, blah, 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 blah. They turn it on. Kino's like, everybody on the tables. Everybody jumps up on tables, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Electricity goes and flares up. When it does, it shorts out the entire floor. That's why they did the water. I was just like, yes, it was amazing. I was like, so brilliant. As they're fighting their way up the elevator thing tilts and this and that, and they're fighting, and Cassian manages to get his hands on one of the rifles, so the guy fell and he hits him and the whole bit, and then he starts fighting back, and next thing you know, it is a genuine uprising. They make it out, they make it to the thing, they kill the soldiers, they're running through the hallways, they're freeing up everybody, and they're doing exactly what I'm talking about. They're shooting guards that they find, but they're going to every floor and every workspace they can, opening the gates and telling everybody, you get out one chance to get out, one way out. Hence the chant. One way out, one way out. Oh man, it's amazing. And that's exactly what happens. People are running and this and that, and finally they make it to the control center, Kim and Kino, and Cassian's like, it's gotta be you, you're the leader. Then we can listen to me. You're the one that's gotta say it. It's you. Pushes him, go man. And so he gets in front of the mic, and he starts talking, and he literally says one of the things that Cassian had said to him, which is, I would rather die trying to escape than die doing anything more for them. Giving them what they want. I was just like, yeah, man. Do it. And sure enough, he begins opening up the jails and prisons, and he's like, whoever you are, you all start heading up, start climbing, whatever it takes. You get here. You see somebody slow or falling, you help them move along too, but you get up here, and because this is our one and only shot, one way out. And sure enough, they all run toward the things, and where the ships had landed or were posting them, there's just big giant holes. They're in the middle of an ocean. You can see land in the distance. Everyone starts jumping. Everyone starts jumping. Because that's how much they need to be free. They're just like, we gotta go. I can't. And I don't blame them. It's kind of incredible. To see them, and they show this really great shot from the sky, and all you see is all these white dots. They're just swimming. And I was like, if I wanted to be free, if that situation where I was going to die no matter what, yeah, I think I'd jump too. Yeah, I absolutely think I would. Comment below. Let me know what you thought about that part, and if you guys would do that too, if you jump for safety too, because I'm telling you, man, even dude, Kino is like, I can't swim, and he's kind of like resolved himself to that. But I'm like, bro, try. Like, what other option have you got? Jump, man. Jump and go. Because again, like you said, you're gonna die either way. You may as well die trying to swim to freedom versus let them take you out. Yeah, so this, golly, man, this is an unbelievable episode. And then, so the coda button on this episode is Luthen meets with Lonnie. And you come to find out Lonnie's an informant. And Lonnie explains the whole situation, and Luthen essentially says, okay, we're going to go ahead and sacrifice Krieger. You're going to sacrifice Krieger's people. And they're like, why? Why are you going to do that? Because he wants to protect Lonnie's cover. And Lonnie's like, I got to get out of family, this and that. And he's like, no, you don't. And he's like, what if you had to sacrifice? I'm having to sacrifice. I'm endangering my family. And dude's like, I sacrifice everything. Love, family, people, connections, trust, everything. Essentially saying Luthen is definitely in line with Cassian's mentality. The mentality that Cassian espouses when we first see him in Rogue One, which is the rebellion, the cause above everything else. People are able to be sacrificed if things aren't better. And yeah, man, it's crazy. So Luthen's like, yeah, no, you're gonna stay there, and it sucks. And I'm sorry, but those are the choices. He's like, we have to do these ugly choices so people can have their future eventually. That's the thing. And you're like, wow, man. It is both a selfless and selfish mentality. Selfish because he's like, yeah, what I want's going to happen no matter what. Selfless because he's right. He's got to give everything up. Anyway, it's huge. I've enjoyed this thing to no end. And this episode, golly, man, episode 10. Know what I'll index for episode 10? Appropriately, is a 10. Oh yeah, man. This is the second number, second 10 I'm gonna give an episode, and it was brilliant. I enjoyed the heck out of it, man. So, all right, comment below. Let me know what you guys thought. I tell you what, man, I'm enjoying the heck out of the show. Share the show with us. We're also doing some new things in this areas of Star Trek and Doctor Who. So hopefully, we're trying to cover all the fandoms because we're a bunch of geeks in this house. The know-it-alls say hello as well. See each and every one of you, Baby Know-it-all and Mrs. Know-it-all. So hopefully you guys, we will all get an opportunity to talk more next week. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.